What up? It's Dunlap here. But before I say anything else, I just want to start with a massive thank you to everyone for 5,000 subscribers. Just the thought of it brings a small tear to my eye. I can't even explain it. But I'm a grown man, so I refuse to let it drop. Maybe we'll do a cry reveal for 10,000. I don't know. We'll see. So, I was born and raised in Western Illinois. To anyone that might share that sentiment, I am sorry for everything you've had to go through. It's at least better than California or New York or Chicago though, let's be honest. My birth was the result of my mother and my father meeting in the Navy. My mother watched a show with a, and I quote, hot doctor. And ironically, this was around the time I was born. So, my mother, while leaving out some context, pitched the idea of this name to my dad. After some reluctance, we eventually left the hospital and my name was Bergen. It is wild how much this contrast will shift. But as an infant, I was absurdly fat. Like comically fat. Yes, all babies are fat, but I was another level of fat. It enveloped my personality. If you threw me down the stairs, I would bounce. Like I wouldn't even cry. I would just bounce. Like I never cried. I just laid there. This did not last long though, because quickly through my youth, I became as skinny as a rail, but very energetic. And this came to a point where I was constantly in trouble with teachers at school because I always had to have eyes on me. Now in elementary school, this was more normal, but it's of course not quite as normal as you get older. I grew up in a suburban town, not exactly known for its cleanliness and low crime. We had a huge backyard with tons of grass to run on and a sidewalk leading to our pond and my grandfather's woodworking shop. It was a great escape for my siblings and I because it was a nice and maintained yard, and it distracted us from understanding that there were not great people in our neighborhood. There was a ton of room for me to play football with my younger brother while he just ran away screaming, not having quite as much fun as me. And that thing in the lower right is my attempt at the awkward moment seal. I don't remember the reference, I'm not gonna lie. It would be safe for you to assume that we grew up glued to the TV and video games. And you would be right. A day full of SSX Tricky on the GameCube or Halo 2 on the Xbox was a great day to me, until my younger brother tried butting in and taking my controller or dumb things like that. We resented each other until well after I graduated high school. But I was justified in my stance on it. One thing I will never forget that's become a joke between my brother and I is how he used to stay up all night, quote unquote, secretly playing Halo with the volume off. We shared a bunk bed and I'd always watch and pretend to be asleep, just hoping one day he would get caught and his little booty blistered. I'm talking like 2 a.m. time frame before preschool kind of degeneracy here. Like it was real. And another memory that will stay with me forever is how the rocks surrounding our fish pond were notoriously unstable. Like being kids, we didn't get balance in physics. So we would step out onto this long rock hanging over the pond and it would capsize and we'd fall in. I remember this happening to my older sister one day while she was wearing a dress. Okay, it's horribly drawn, but I'm hoping that you understand the gist of this. But we kept growing up and my youngest sister was added to the family in 2008 when I was just 8 years old. While she was barely able to walk, she tried climbing our monkey bars to jump and grab the moon. This, of course, just resulted in her crashing back down to earth and snapping her arm. I bring this up because it's happened twice in almost the exact same spot of her arm. But the second time was from a trampoline accident. And I bring this up because her arm has never been the same. Like, not in a bad way, but it bends really weirdly now. Moving on to 5th grade, I was still a troublemaker. I was the golden example of what not to be in a growing child. I cut this girl's hair in class. Yes, those are poorly drawn scissors, not wieners. And this resulted in my first ever suspension. They sent me home and my family put through forced manual labor. I would say I never had one again, but let's just forget about this topic actually. As I got older, the place we lived only got sketchier. We used to ride our bikes down the road to play with friends, but that quickly had to end as the number of grown men on bikes patrolling the streets also grew. So our family knew that it was time for a change before it was too late. So right as my 6th grade year started, we packed up and moved out into the country and into a different school district. There were no sketchy people to be found, and we had more than enough space for farm animals, so we did exactly that. We had horses, a mini donkey, gooses, chickens, and of course we flew the flag of the greatest country to ever exist. That was my idea. As I settled into junior high school, my need for attention just got exponentially worse, and as a result, nobody would take me seriously. I was called a class clown, and the attentions became so regular that it really started to get to me. My grades slipped, and so did my mentality. And after seeing this, my mother took me to a doctor and I was given ADHD medication, but I absolutely hated them. I was already as skinny as a rail, and it felt insulting to even bother, but I still took them. One of the side effects of a medication is severe weight loss, and at that time I had no weight to lose. But I still dropped a very concerning amount of weight, and next time we went to the doctor and my mother said my grades were going up, I absolutely refused to keep taking the medication because she could see how I felt on paper, but she couldn't see how I personally felt, so thankfully I was taken off of them. Time moved on, and I eventually made it into high school. Something changed in my freshman year, and I just had matured past any expectation of me. I stopped getting detentions, I stopped failing classes, and I just stopped being a disgrace, and ironically at the same time I was introduced to the gym. Coincidence? I'm not entirely sure, though I did put on muscle, and I got taller. I was still always skinny. I was strong, I was skinny. I was tall, but I was still skinny. I'd always played football up to this point, and I continued in high school. In my varsity years, I sported the number 30, and I was pretty reckless with my playstyle because I had played so long, I think I just went numb to the pain. Like, I can't imagine how many undiagnosed concussions I have that I still suffer from right now. I will never know. They never let me out of the field, though, because I always sucked at cardio and at running. I can't explain it. I was just a receiver, and I was pacing the lineman. I don't have bad lungs. I just have bad cardio. The coaches just thought I wasn't trying hard enough. But thankfully, as I got older, it's gotten better. I kept working out a lot, and I kept getting stronger, but I never got bigger, okay? It was the wildest thing, being the strongest in the school pound for pound, but still not being very big. I'm not saying I was the strongest in the school, I'm just saying for my size, I was the strongest. I always hated school, and it showed in my inability to make good grades. Like, I didn't care enough to try. It was useless to me, and it felt like it, though I didn't know yet exactly what I wanted to do. A nearby school actually was offering a fire science class, and they collaborated with my school to let our students try it out on their own. I actually jumped on the opportunity, and of course I just fell in love with it. Everything felt right. The destruction, the helping people, the being viewed as a reliable person. I just knew this is what I wanted to do with my life, and I didn't need school to do it. So, now the year is 2018. When I wasn't in school, I was watching YouTube or I was playing video games. I had a cousin that uploaded to YouTube, and I wanted to give it a try, so I uploaded straight cringe. It keeps me up at night knowing what I put out there for the world to see. It's bad. Also, in 2018, I graduated high school, and of course, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That same month, May of 2018, I swore into the United States Air Force to be a fire protection specialist. I had no idea what I just committed myself to, but Lord have mercy, I was gonna F around, and I was gonna find out. As I waited for my days to leave for basic training, I used my time for YouTube. And I had slow growth, but it was growth nonetheless. I did this until December rolled around, and eventually it was time to go. And of course, I didn't know if I was ever gonna return to YouTube. I spent 8 weeks in Texas becoming a new person. They tried pretty hard to break me down, and it might have worked for some people, but I will let this drawing that I'm making show you exactly how those 8 weeks went. February 2019. I graduated 2 months after my first shower with 50 naked dudes, and I don't really know what else to say about that. I was ready to embrace the fire academy and eventually just come home feeling like a success and a hero for the first time. But while I was in the academy, my grandfather fell very ill. He had cancer, and it had gotten much worse. It had gotten to the point where there was nothing anybody could do, so he was just brought home to live out the rest of his days. I remember sending him a card, and my grandmother read it out loud to him. I only wanted one thing, and that was for him to hold strong, because I will be back soon. The video my mother sent me of this was the last time I ever saw my grandfather with his eyes open, and the only time I actually ever saw him cry in real life. And after grappling with his passing, I actually managed to graduate the academy in June of 2019. I wrote down 2018, that's my bad. But this is me standing on top of the big logo in the academy that you can only stand on when you graduate. All my work had led to this moment. I flew home and I began to work. The first thing you do fresh out of the academy is get licensed on every single vehicle. And let me tell you, those moments can be very entertaining. Like, those fire trucks are bigger than anyone you've ever seen. The thing on the top is a water gun, by the way. And in 2020, of course, I turned 21 years old. Great, right? Wrong. Very wrong. I became a severe alcoholic. Up until 21, I had never even smelled a beer before. But of course, as soon as I tasted vodka, I took a horrible turn. So every 3 days, I'd come home from work, I would just wait for the night, and I'd be just on the verge of blacking out. Every 3 nights. It's something I deeply regret, but it's done and I can't go back. I didn't see it in the moment, but this would ruin a lot of relationships for me and it tanked my physical health. Anyways though, after being able to settle down and get used to normal life again back home, I actually thought about the times I had uploaded to YouTube. I knew it would take up a lot of my free time, so I thought about it for a while. Of course, as you can assume, I just had to get back into it. I kicked back into gear and I just started churning out videos again. I never really considered a group to collaborate with, but I met Venerate through my younger brother. And over the course of, I think, like a year or so, we now have the entire coalition. Thinking about how it was all founded because me and Venerate started branching out is just wild to me. We had the skies to aim for and nobody to stop us. It was an absolute blast. But as time moved on, people did become busy, and the only ones left uploading now are me, Heir, and Wild. It sucks, but it just is what it is. I still lived with my parents at this time, so all the money went straight into my pockets, and I made a good amount of money. So it stacked up very quickly, and I was able to afford monster parts for my PC to upgrade my gaming experience and my video quality. And I thank God every day for what I do have. Like I said, I made good money, but working at a military base was just not what I wanted to do with my life. I'd always wanted to be a city firefighter and run a lot of emergency calls and not have to distract myself all day because we don't run any. So I had to sharpen up my resume and I started searching. And during this process, I actually met a girl. And this girl, of course, would become the love of my life, by my choice, of course, because I would not be denied. I'm somewhat joking, of course, but it was around this time when I met Reagan. And we would begin dating, and she even kissed me once. Moving forward, in 2022, I was eventually offered a job as a full-time firefighter in a bigger city out west. I packed my stuff, and I finally moved out. And grateful was an understatement. I could finally be a real firefighter and help people and just live my dream. When I finally started working full-time, I came to realize I didn't know quite as much as I thought I did. I had experience, I just had military experience. I didn't have civilian experience. So the transition, I struggled a little bit. I picked up on how to operate their way, but again, it took me a bit of time. So then late 2022, I learned I was deploying to the Middle East. I had to let my chief know somehow, but they didn't take the news lightly, and eventually they just ended up getting rid of me. I was forced to resign March of 2023, and I walked away from the job I thought was my dream. I'd moved out, and I had to pay bills somehow, and the quickest job I could get was working at Planet Fitness. It was hard for me. I was a young and disciplined man, and all I could think about was how I felt like a complete failure. Everything was my fault. I went from 0 to 0, and I finally felt the sting that most people feel of just getting by. I worked there for a few months, and the time eventually came to say goodbye again. In May of 2023, I shipped out to Iraq, where the iconic picture of me was taken. I suck at drawing, but hopefully you know which one I'm talking about. I hope, anyways. I spent 5 months there deployed, and dang it, dude, I would love to go back. I miss it a lot out there. It sounds weird, but I'm serious. Like, I would kill to deploy again. I would, oh, dude, I want to do it so badly. Because when we were deployed there, I had a purpose. I felt confident. I felt disciplined. I had a day-to-day routine. And I always had something to look forward to in coming home. And like I said earlier, I said I wanted fire. And trust me, I got more than I asked for over in Iraq. I won't go into detail, but just look at this drawing. I mean, that's all one big fire, by the way. Like, it was huge. Anyways, I enjoyed my deployment a lot, but the distance was hard for Reagan and I. We were in different spots of the world, in opposite time zones, so making time for each other was hard. We weren't able to set time apart for each other like we wanted to, and it really hurt our relationship. It was very, very hard. But don't get me wrong, it is entirely possible if you do have the right person. So the 5 months and my deployment came to an end, and I was finally able to embrace my mother and my girlfriend again at the airport. I didn't actually cry, even though I drew it. Maybe I did. I don't know. I didn't, actually. Maybe I did. Anyways, it is now November 2023, and I was thinking about everything I had just been through late one night in the shower. I had nothing and nobody to believe in. My life could have ended overseas. I could have died in Iraq, and that just would have been it. And up to that point, my life would have been very regrettable, and I knew it. So at that point, I also knew that something had to change. And in walks my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And at this point, I knew my life was actually just getting started. So I got back to the States, and for a little bit of time, I was jobless. Reagan was in college, and I had nothing better to do, so I said screw it, and I moved up near her so we could continue our lives together. I had nothing to go off of, so it was entirely a leap of faith for me. But luckily, I landed a job as an Amazon delivery driver. I hated it, I really did. But it was enough for me to pay bills and live a healthy life. But during this time, I continued testing for other fire departments, but I guess God decided that these just weren't right for me. So I had to keep biding my time and waiting for the right opening. But thankfully, I had enough saved up to take Reagan on a short trip to a botanical garden. This garden is the one I took her to when we went on our first real date together, and this garden is where I proposed. So it is now June of 2024, and I've just recently started working for an EMS service that transports patients to hospitals. Just imagine it like firefighting, but like without fires or vehicles. It's just the medical stuff. So I'm using my time to sharpen my skills that I was once rusty on. And eventually, I would love to work for our fire department again. I have high hopes for my future, and life is absolutely going well. I'm sorry if that was a little bit longer than expected, but again, thank you so much for subscribing and tuning into my channel. I really do owe you guys everything. It's been a huge blessing to me, and I'm forever grateful for all of you. But anyways, my name is Dunlap, and hopefully I will see you guys around.